Hello, this is a video I'm making from my own bedroom on American literature. American literature is a pretty young literature compared to British literature. British literature began from the Greco-Roman period or the Renaissance period, and it extended over 500-600 years. American literature, however, began very late. It was only in the end of the 15th century that Christopher Columbus discovered America. That was in 1492. Are you listening? So 1492 is the year in which the New World was discovered. And after that, in the 16th and 17th centuries, there was a lot of migration into America. And this led to a settlement in the eastern side of the continent. Imagine that this is the American continent. This is where Europe is. This is Asia side. Here is Atlantic Ocean. Here is Pacific Ocean. It is on this side that the settlements happened. The white people from Europe came and settled down in this part of America. The western side of America was forests. Red Indians lived there, and the eastern colonists always dreamed that they will be able to go to the west and get money, freedom, equality. The 13 settlements in America started in 1607 with Jamestown or Virginia. Jamestown or Virginia, named after King James and before that Elizabeth I, was the first English settlement in the New World. After that, more and more colonies came into being, and finally there were 13 colonies. In the 13 colonies, very important was New England, that region. It is not the name of a colony, it is the name of a region. And the 13 colonies were all ruled by the British government. The British government imposed taxes on them, and they were controlled by the government. In the 18th century, that is in 1770s, started the American War of Revolution. At that time, there was a very important leader in America. Can you tell me who that is? Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin, you must have heard in your school days. He was an important scientist, physicist. Benjamin Franklin encouraged one Thomas Paine to emigrate from England to America. Thomas Paine came to America and wrote a very important book called Common Sense. This is in the 18th century. Common Sense, in a way, started the American Revolution. The colonists were trying to resist or fight against the taxes imposed by the British government. It was Thomas Paine in Common Sense who told them that you should not only fight against the taxes, but fight against the government itself. You should try for complete freedom. So the Common Sense fired the revolutionary spirit. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence happened. America became free. The United States of America was formed. The 18th century was therefore the time of prose writers like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine. Benjamin Franklin edited journals and also wrote a series of articles called, do you know the name of the articles? Busybody Papers. And Benjamin Franklin was a very important social leader. Thomas Paine, after Common Sense, wrote other books. In 1791, Thomas Paine wrote a book against Edmund Burke. Now listen, what happened? Edmund Burke was a philosopher in England. Edmund Burke wrote against the French Revolution. He argued that revolution is negative. Revolution is not going to bring positive changes. What he advocated was evolution. This Edmund Burke wrote in 1790. In 1791, Thomas Paine replied to Edmund Burke in the book called Rights of Man. It sparked a series of replies. Edmund Burke's book sparked a series of replies. Not only Thomas Paine's reply, but also a lot of other people wrote against Edmund Burke, such as Mary Wollstonecraft. Mary Wollstonecraft was the mother of Mary Shelley and wife of William Godwin. Vishant, are you paying attention? Mary Wollstonecraft wrote Vindication on the Rights of Men. The next year, 1792, Mary Wollstonecraft wrote The Vindication of the Rights of Woman. Now, the next important work by Thomas Paine was The Age of Reason. It was a book on theology or religion. The Age of Reason. At this time, I told you, the Americans believed that the eastern colonists can move westward and inhabit the forest areas in the west. This gave rise to what is called the frontier. The frontier is the imaginary line dividing the eastern white settlements from the forest area or the area of the Red Indians in the west. This imaginary line is the meeting point between civilization in the east and savagery in the west. Frederick Jackson Turner, a historian, propounded what is called Turner hypothesis. This hypothesis means that this movement of the imaginary frontier to the west is indicative of the development of America. When the Americans grow from the east towards the west, the frontier will move to the west. So the recession of the frontier to the west indicates the development of America. Now, this is called frontier hypothesis. The concept of the frontier gave Americans an optimism, the spirit of freedom, the spirit of equality, the spirit of easy money. Americans believed that they can get success. This optimistic belief in themselves eventually led to what is called the American dream. The frontier also led to frontier literature. Theresia, pay attention. The frontier, I was saying, leads to what is called frontier literature. In frontier literature, there will be white people as well as Red Indians living together. Hey, we should not say Red Indians. They should be called Native Americans. Red Indians was the name given by Christopher Columbus, thinking that these Native Americans are actually Indians. So, the frontier literature shows the meeting point of the whites and the Native Americans. And frontier writers were there. Very important early frontier writers who were born in the end of the 18th century and lived till the beginning of the 19th century. One was James Fenimore Cooper. Another person was Washington Irving. James Fenimore Cooper wrote what is called, Asha, do you know? James Fenimore Cooper's very important series of works. Yesterday I said in Skype class. Leather Stocking Tales. James Fenimore Cooper wrote 5 leather stocking tales. The most important of these is the second one, The Last of the Mohicans. In all the 5 leather stocking tales, there is one white man, Natty Bumppo. He is living with the Native American tribes, sometimes helping them, fighting against some other tribes, etc. The Last of the Mohicans is a frontier novel. Washington Irving also wrote frontier literature. He wrote a series of short stories in a book called The Sketchbook. There are 2 important short stories, Rip Van Winkle and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So that is also an important concept and genre of the 18th and early 19th centuries. The 19th century in American literature is called the period of Romanticism, same as British literature. Is that clear? Kavya Dikshit, my previous student, listen to me. So, 19th century is the period of Romanticism. Romanticism, as you know, deals with subjectivity, emotions, nature, etc. In American literature also, the period of Romanticism talked about people's subjectivity, individuality, emotions, imagination, nature. The Romantic period can be divided into a few sections. The 1930s was the time when Transcendentalism first made its appearance. Sorry, not 1830s. 1830s is the time of Transcendentalism. 1836, Emerson published Nature, the essay. That was also the time of Andrew Jackson, the president, and he wanted to establish America as a clean and independent country. There was a lot of oppression against the Native Americans at this time. At this time, slavery is already there. African Americans are there. Some slaves also were writing slave narratives. And Transcendentalism began, centered in the place called Concord. And it reached its greatest heights in 1840s. Emerson, Thoreau, associated with them was Walt Whitman. Ralph Waldo Emerson was a Unitarian minister, clergyman. And he gave America its much needed optimism. That is why Transcendentalism was so important. He told the Americans that you can be independent, that you do not need to depend on anybody else. He gave Americans the belief in themselves, and eventually, at this time, the American dream was very popular. In the essay, American Scholar, Emerson famously said, "We will walk on our own feet. We will be self-reliant." Self-reliance is also an essay by Emerson. Manikandan, are you listening? I know you are there and paying a lot of attention. I hope you will watch this video again, take down everything and do your own research on each one of the points I'm saying, on every one of the points that I'm saying. Okay? Very good. I was talking about Emerson. I mentioned Emerson's American Scholar essay. And then I mentioned the essay Self-Reliance. Emerson believed that every human being is a microcosm of the divine power or God. He was here influenced by the Hindu concept or Indian concept of Paramatma. Paramatma is the oversoul. Every human being is an expression of the oversoul. Emerson was also influenced by other Eastern philosophies like Zen Buddhism, Confucianism, etc. Emerson also wrote poetry. Emerson wrote the very famous poem Brahma. Please look up Emerson's works. Very, very important. Thoreau was a younger contemporary of Emerson. And Thoreau did one experiment with himself. In order to experiment with self-reliance, Thoreau went and lived in a lonely area near Walden Pond without depending on anyone. Completely lonely he was there. And he wondered how a human being can depend upon himself and live. About this experiment, he wrote in the book called Walden or Life in the Woods. That is the subtitle. Thoreau wrote a very major essay about something that happened during this life near Walden. 1840s, early 1840s, that is when he lived there. 2 years he lived there. There was a tax that the government imposed on the people at that time. Emerson refused to pay that tax because he said, I will not support a government that supports slavery. At that time, I told you there was slavery. The northern states in America were industrial. The southern states were agricultural. The southern states employed slaves. The southern aristocratic families employed slaves. The northern states were against slavery. There was in the northern states of America what is called abolitionism or the attempt to abolish slavery at this time. Thoreau supported abolitionism and Thoreau refused to pay the tax. The government imprisoned him briefly. Do you know the essay that Thoreau wrote about that experience? Civil Disobedience. Lalita, are you there? Civil Disobedience, have you read? It is an often prescribed essay in syllabi in universities. You should read it. Okay, Lalita? Very good. Thoreau was a transcendentalist like Emerson, and Emerson and Thoreau influenced Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman was like the voice of America. He upheld democratic values like individualism, democracy. Walt Whitman upheld American values like individualism, democracy, and he believed that all human beings are one. There was only one major collection that he published in his lifetime. That was the 1855 collection. Tell me the name. 1855 collection. Leaves of Grass. Yes. And in that book, there are very major poems like Song of Myself, When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloomed. That is an elegy for Abraham Lincoln. And Then there was a series of elegies actually that he wrote for Abraham Lincoln. Another famous elegy that you probably know is, "O Captain, my Captain." Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, another important poem by Walt Whitman. A Passage to India. Then Walt Whitman his Leaves of Grass belonged to the age called American Renaissance. That is 1850s. Before that, there is something that happened in 1840s itself. What was that? Something was discovered. Do you know? Near California. Gold. The California Gold Rush happened in the 1840s. Gold was discovered in the soil in California, near the river. At first, people just picked it up. Later, they began digging and extracting gold from soil. All this led to a lot of immigration into California, not only from the USA, but from other parts of Europe also. And people started coming in large numbers. They made a lot of money. At the end of the decade only, the government put an end to it. The government said, "Arey, this is our money that the people are taking. It is our gold. Government should control this," they realized at the end of the 1840s. So the California Gold Rush gave the Americans a lot of belief in success, in money, easy money, in freedom. You can go to the West because California is in the West and make money, they thought. All this gave them an optimistic idea. What is that called? What dream? American dream. The American dream was engendered by the frontier, by California Gold Rush, by the optimistic belief in human beings of the transcendentalists, etc. Don't think all romantics of the American 19th century period are optimistic. There were a group of writers who were called dark romantics. They were very pessimistic. They did not believe that human beings are ultimately good. Can you name some of them? Yes. Nathaniel Hawthorne. Then Edgar Allan Poe, very dark, gothic romances he wrote. Nathaniel Hawthorne and Edgar Allan Poe were dark romantics. And Nathaniel Hawthorne, as you know, is the author of the very famous novel, The Scarlet Letter, 1850. The very next year, Herman Melville, his friend, wrote Moby Dick. The 1850s was a time when a lot of brilliant works were written in American literature, such as Leaves of Grass also. Emerson wrote a representative men at this time. American Renaissance, it is called 1850s. The name actually came from a book by F.O. Matthiessen. American Renaissance is a book by F.O. Matthiessen. And during this time, Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote many important works. The Scarlet Letter, The House of the Seven Gables, The Marble Fawn, Blithedale Romance. Blithedale Romance was written against the Transcendentalists. The Scarlet Letter is the novel that is called one of the pillars of American literature. It is the story of one Hester Prynne, a small young girl, young woman, who was sent away from Amsterdam by her husband. And she went and lived alone in Boston. Boston is in the area called New England. And there she was alone, helpless. So she fell in love with a man, somebody we don't know, and got an illegitimate child. At the beginning of the novel, she is tried for adultery. She is made to wear a scarlet or red letter A on her dress. A for adultery, adulteress. Poor Hester Prynne. She has to live away from the rest of the people, close to the forest, and bring up her child, Pearl. She suffers a lot, but it also turns out that she's a wonderful woman. She's helping everybody. She's very able. And you can't just blame her. The rest of the society in Boston is also not so good. One powerful woman in the society, Mistress Hibbins, she is worshipping the black man or devil. In the strict Puritan society of Boston, only Hester Prynne is regarded as evil. Apply the Foucauldian idea there and you will understand that the society makes out itself as innocent by marginalizing some people as evil, as criminal. That is why we need prisons. That is why we need lunatic asylums. So Hester Prynne, by the end of the novel, wins our sympathies. The father of her child turns out to be a clergyman. Do you know his name? Tell me his name. Raja, do you know? Arthur Dimmesdale. Arthur Dimmesdale is a clergyman. And at the end, it turns out that he was himself suffering. He was burning on his flesh with a red hot iron, a scarlet letter A. He reveals this in front of everyone and he dies. Hester Prynne after that is no longer an adulteress. But she does not take off her scarlet letter punishment. That A, she does not take off. She continues to live with that A. This novel is called an archetypal American literature, a pillar of American literature. Why? This is a novel that shows some of the very important principles of American culture. One is the theme of nature versus culture. The people of Boston represent culture. Hester Prynne represents nature, or what is natural. Hester Prynne is not presented in the novel as a bad, immoral woman. She is presented as a human being. This novel was a criticism of the Salem witch trials, in which our Nathaniel Hawthorne author's grandfather himself was a judge. What do you mean by Salem witch trials? Salem witch trials refer to the religious hysteria that happened in Boston area in the 17th century. Scarlet Letter is set in the 17th century also. Some women, children, and even dogs were accused of being witches. They were getting some hallucinations and some weird behavior they were showing. So they were accused as witches and some of them were killed also. Nathaniel Hawthorne criticizes the Salem witch trials in the Scarlet Letter because Hester Prynne is also treated like a witch or an evil woman, whereas she's actually a wonderful woman. So this is a novel that shows or exposes Puritanism as not so great. This is a novel that asserts the principle of individualism. and democracy, equality, such values. And it is written in a highly symbolic, romantic language. Highly symbolic language. Nathaniel Hawthorne also wrote The House of the Seven Gables. In the introduction to that novel, he has distinguished between the novel and the romance. The novel is generally a short novel, a short prose work, a fictional work, that is about external reality or social reality. Whereas the romance is a larger novel about inner reality. It is more adventurous. It shows dark passions. Herman Melville's Moby Dick is a romance. Do you know the subtitle of Moby Dick? The Whale. Moby Dick is a book about whaling. And what is the opening line of Moby Dick? Call me Ishmael. Is there an Ishmael in your class? No, right? So let us call Brinda. Brinda, are you paying attention? Call me Ishmael. That is the opening line of Herman Melville's Moby Dick. Here, Ishmael is the narrator. He is talking about a journey that he took in a ship called Pequod. That ship has a crew, a multicultural crew. The captain of the ship is Captain Ahab. He seems to be a very cruel man with a scar on his face and a whale leg. That means he lost one leg and a whale bone is put instead of his leg. This accident he got because of one whale called Moby Dick. And he wants to destroy that whale. He's a monomaniac. A monomaniac is one man with single-minded ambition. He does not want to kill any whale. He does not care about the other crew in his ship. He only has one aim, to kill Moby Dick. The whole ship ultimately gets destroyed because of this man. And in the ship, there are, as I told you, a multicultural crew. They include an African, a Red Indian, a Maori or a native New Zealander. Then there Fedella, a Parsi, etc. So the ship is like America, multicultural. The whole novel is about the dark passions of this romantic hero, gigantic, romantic, passionate hero, Captain Ahab. And the whale is a symbol. The whale is huge and white and mysterious like nature. The whole novel that we are reading is also huge like a whale. Along with the story of Captain Ahab, there are many other stories told. There are digressions into the science of whales or cetology. There are digressions into religion, history, mythology. Like a whale that lives along with many other fishes that move along with it. There are even plants growing on the whale. The whale is a whole ecosystem. Like that, the book is a massive narrative with many narratives woven into it. And it is highly symbolic and romantic. That is the most important book by Herman Melville. Herman Melville has also written other books all about seafaring, like Typee, Billy Budd the Sailor, etc. These are all about exotic people and tribes, faraway lands, and very passionate people or protagonists. I mentioned Edgar Allan Poe. He wrote Gothic romances and perfected the short story. The father of the short story genre was, in America, the father of the short story genre was Washington Irving. I already mentioned. Edgar Allan Poe, you know, wrote about very mysterious and passionate people again, because he was a dark romantic. And his book is called Tales of the Grotesque and the Arabesque. There are many Oriental elements in Edgar Allan Poe's stories. He has written very famous stories that inaugurated genres like detective fiction. The Murders in the Rue Morgue, that is a major story by Edgar Allan Poe that is supposed to have started the detective fiction genre. Other important stories by Edgar Allan Poe include The Oval Portrait, The Pit and the Pendulum, The Fall of the House of Usher, etc. Poe was also a poet. You know, he wrote the poem, The Raven. It is about a young student. He has lost his girlfriend or sweetheart, Lenore. There is a raven coming and sitting at his window, and he talks to the raven. The raven keeps replying, nevermore, 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 nevermore. Every time he says nevermore, the trauma of the student increases. Ultimately, it's like he goes mad. Edgar Allan Poe, in the essay, The Philosophy of Composition, has written about the composition of this poem. To Helen, to Science, these are Al-Araf, a Palace. These are other poems by Edgar Allan Poe. Another very dark poet during this time, who wrote about death, immortality, short poems. Do you know the name? Do you know the name? Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson was a reclusive poet. She lived alone, not alone. She lived in loneliness. And she had very few friends. And she wrote a huge number of poems. 1,700 poems or something. Out of which only 11 were published in her lifetime. So, Emily Dickinson was a reclusive poet, and she was called the Nun of Amherst. Can you name some of Emily Dickinson's poems? Whom shall I call? Jayashri. Emily Dickinson's poems. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. I heard a fly buzz when I died. A bird came down the walk, safe in their alabaster chambers, etc. Emily Dickinson talks about death fearlessly, as if he is a lover or suitor, as if it is only a transition between two states of existence. She talks about immortality. She talks about pain. She wrote very brilliant poems. Each poem is like a gem. Have you read Emily Dickinson's poems? Today itself, you should read. So that is the 1850s. The 1860s in America is a very momentous period. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln, the Republican politician, became the President of America. He wanted to abolish slavery. And this led to the Civil War between the northern states of America and the southern states of America over the issue of slavery. And the northern states won. America was devastated. Lots of fighting. So much destruction. But finally, the northern states won. Slavery was abolished. And Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Not actually beheaded, shot. He was a very good man. Walt Whitman wrote a series of elegies about Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln has been regarded as one of the greatest presidents of America. The Civil War led to many novels and writings. Two are very famous. One is Stephen Crane's The Red Badge of Courage. It is set against the Battle of Chancellorsville in the American Civil War. American Civil War was between 1861 and 65. Another important novel set against the Civil War is, it's a very famous novel. The protagonist is Scarlett O'Hara. Scarlett O'Hara. Have you heard that name before? The novel is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. Very important novel set against the Civil War. It is also a very famous movie. After the 1860s came the period of realism. Mark Twain was a very important figure in the period of realism, American realism. He was a writer of local color realism. In other words, realism about a region. As you might know, Mark Twain wrote about the Mississippi region. Novels like The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Gilded Age, another important book by Mark Twain. Huckleberry Finn is also one of the pillars of American literature. There is a boy, Huck. He is a poor boy and he is adopted by the society. Tom Sawyer's aunt and a lot of civilized people in Mississippi, in Jefferson, have adopted Huck, and he is living with widow Douglas. Huck does not want civilization. He wants to go to the West in California and make money there by himself. He does not want to read the Bible. He does not want to go for dinner when the bell rings, when the dinner bell rings. He does not want to wear clean clothes, etc. Huck runs away and meets a runaway slave called Jim. And they journey down the Mississippi River. They have a raft and a canoe. And this journey is what you see in the novel, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. As Huck and Jim journey down the Mississippi River, they come across a lot of people, villages, towns in that region. And history of American literature of that time is written. The stories of these people, their pettiness, their beauty, their values are all depicted in the novel. Mark Twain is regarded as a famous author of this region, Mississippi region. Huckleberry Finn shows important values of American culture as well. Man versus wild. Culture versus savagery. Then the spirit of individuality, independence, freedom, equality, multiculturalism, racism. These are all themes in Huckleberry Finn. It is a brilliant novel, much readable novel. Realism, the movement, gave way to another movement called naturalism. Naturalism is like realism, depicts reality in an analytical manner, but represents human beings as products of their environment. Human beings are behaving in certain ways. Criminals behave in certain ways. Prostitutes have become prostitutes, etc., because of their circumstances. Human beings are constructs or products of their environment. This is one step closer to modernism. Modernism also shows human beings as constructs. Naturalism as a movement began in France, and Émile Zola was the important figure. His book was Nana, famous book. In America, there were famous naturalists like Jack London, who wrote The Call of the Wild and its sequel, White Fang. Call of the Wild is the story of a dog called Buck. He was petted and pampered and grew up in a household. He is stolen from his family and taken to Klondike Gold Rush region in Yukon County. There was the Klondike Gold Rush. There he is taken and made to pull sledges. There he slowly comes into contact with the wilderness. The wild animal inside him wakes up. Eventually, he becomes like a wolf. He begins to kill and hunt like a wolf, and he becomes the leader of a pack of wolves. All of us human beings are like Buck. We should turn into supermen and superwomen, like Buck turned into a wolf. Other naturalists in America were Theodore Dreiser. He is the author of the massive novel An American Tragedy. Frank Norris, Stephen Crane. Stephen Crane I already mentioned. He is the author of The Red Badge of Courage. He is also the author of The Open Boat. Stephen Crane often wrote about very adventurous situations. He went and lived in such situations and wrote about them. Theodore Dreiser, in An American Tragedy, talks about Clyde Griffiths. He is a young man, very ambitious and frustrated in life. He kills his girlfriend so that he can marry a rich girl. He is a criminal, and finally he gets the electric chair. But the novel does not just represent him as an immoral criminal. It is the society that gave him the ambition, the unfulfillable ambition. That is also the culprit. Clyde Griffiths is not judged how criminals come into being, how society creates criminals. That is also discussed in the novel. Sister Carrie is another novel by Theodore Dreiser.